The Patriots have
Whoa.
just released Cam Newton. Breaking news this morning. First reported by Jim McBride, who's a Patriots beat reporter and writer for the Boston Globe. So, Mac Jones, your starting quarterback in New England, Cam Newton, no longer even rostered. And now, just because this has come up, and we'll table the tennis discussion. This is fascinating to me because one does wonder, your first reaction, and now it's coming across the timeline over there at ESPN across the crawl. So it is absolutely official. One does wonder if, because it's certainly, Cam Newton was fine during the preseason in terms of his on-field performance. There was nothing terrible about him on field. One wonders if, and there's lots of things in any decision like that, so it's never one thing. But one does wonder if perhaps, certainly there's the Mac Jones impressing Bill Belichick beyond belief part of this, but could it have been his decisions, Cam Newton's, not to get vaccinated as perhaps a problem in this or part of the mix? One wonders if that's part of the equation with Bill Belichick. Not that he may ever come out and say that, but Cam Newton no longer a member of the New England Patriots. I'm a little stunned by that.
I'm a little relieved by that, honestly. All of the talk in the last week of Bill Belichick kind of stumping for Cam was making me wonder if he was kind of losing his fastball a little bit, because having seen Mac Jones perform the way he did at practice last week, on the heels of kind of the opportunity that was Cam, mandatory sitting out, and thinking through exactly what you just said, which is they're two very different players. You have two very specific game plans that you are fashioning on a week-by-week basis if you are expecting Cam Newton or Mac Jones to be your starting quarterback. And if you get a surprise, Cam Newton, close contact, he's out for the next 5 days, he's not playing, that completely throws your game plan into disarray and, puts you at a tactical disadvantage. And so, in the back of my head, it was basically a no-brainer. They had to move on from Cam Newton, and they had to give Mac Jones this opportunity. And, realistically, there's absolutely no reason you draft a quarterback in round one at this point in the in today's NFL.
Yeah,
you only do this. And even the Niners kind of messing around with whatever their decision making process is, and likely ending up now with Jimmy G instead of Trey Lance does not make a ton of sense to me. Same with Chicago and Fields. Like, get these guys out there as soon as freaking possible. You absolutely need as much tape. You need as much ability to evaluate them in years 1, 2, and 3 when they're on these cost-controlled contracts, because you have opportunities in years 3, 4, and 5 to roster a very talented team around a quarterback who's emerging, and that's the way that the Seahawks really set up this blueprint that you could compete on the fly, with the cost-controlled quarterback. And so the sooner Mac Jones gets the reps, the sooner they're able to do a true evaluation on him, and the more comfortable he becomes as as their starting quarterback, the more likely that they're going to be able to compete for a Super Bowl, while Bill Belichick still wants to be a coach in the NFL.
Yeah, I want to drive home this point once again, because it occurs to me, Drew, that inevitably there's going to be people who hear my first reaction to that about being his decision not to get vaccinated as being part of this. This is not, we're not making any kind of, judgments in real life about this kind of thing. I'm just making a football related comment about this. And this is the thing. We saw this, remember, last year with that Denver-New Orleans game where the entire group of Denver quarterbacks was scuttled, and it was essentially a bye week for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah. Auto loss.
Yeah, poor, you had a quarterback who was 1 for 9, who had not even played quarterback for much at Wake Forest, in Kendall Hinton playing for the Broncos. This is going to be something that NFL teams have to deal with, because the NFL's rules are much more stringent on this year. That, look, if it is determined that there's a tracing issue, right? This is the Vikings have a real issue with Kirk Cousins deciding that he's not going to do this. And so if you're a teammate of Kirk Cousins, if you're on the Minnesota Vikings, this is going to constantly be in the back of your head all year. Like, well, we could just be one, any turnaround, any corner, we could get the news that he won't be able to play this week. And then it's such a, by the way, for bettors, not only your bets during the week, right, But contest, think about your contest if you're in against the spread contest. Think about if you're in survivor pools. Not only do you have to, is it incumbent upon you to wait as long as possible because of these COVID restrictions, but then you have to kind of wait those that last stretch and pray that the team that you've selected isn't affected by this. And so I really do believe, again, immediate reaction, that part of this, whether he admits it or not, is Bill Belichick just, there's other reasons for it too. I'm not saying it's the sole decision, but I think it's almost like the tiebreaker for something like this, where he's like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this possibility the rest of the year. So I think all things considered that you've got to factor that into this. And again, Patriots beat reporter Jim McBride, the first to report this, the Patriots releasing Cam Newton from the roster. So Cam Newton out there now. You think Cam Newton lands somewhere else?
No. I mean, it's possible. He's got a skill set that is desirable in terms of being able to gain the hard yard, the 4th and 1, the goal line carry. And there is some team that may talk themselves into, we could really utilize this guy in that way. But he's, he's a somewhat expensive player to add to your roster at a very late stage in the process. So I don't know that he gets a shot this year. And, somebody will probably take a shot on him to, bring him in for a quarterback competition next year, I would guess.
Let me interrupt and ask you about the Patriots here. We haven't seen any movement yet because this is just breaking now. Do you think this moves any numbers on the Patriots, whether it's a season win total, whether it's a futures? And if so, Drew, which way?
It moves them up in my book, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Mac Jones is, his ceiling was higher, because this is the thing. You saw a live arm-ish from Cam Newton in the preseason, but the likelihood that was going to last the entire season was low in my mind. He was eventually we've seen it enough now that his shoulder injury was going to wear down. His the number of attempts was going to have attrition, and he was eventually going to be ineffective throwing the ball down the field. And so at some point he was going to get the hook for Mac Jones. Now you throw Mac Jones out there week 1. He's got a tough week 1 contest, but you get the Jets week 2. That's a nice landing spot. So I do think that in general, by the soft stretch in your schedule, 5, 6, 7, you'll have Mac Jones had enough reps that you can get those wins. Go get those 3 wins. You've got yourself now in a position where you're competing for either the wild card or the AFC East. So I think, but before going to break, Mac Jones Rookie of the Year.
Oh, just about to say it.
Of the week last week.
There it is.
That price was like 10, 11 to 1. That's absolutely insane.
Grab it if it's still up. Grab it if it's still up immediately. 10 to 1 this morning. I bet it's down everywhere, but if there's still some rogue spots, perhaps in faraway places that have it up, grab it immediately.
Yep.
So here's the deal on the Mac Jones Offensive Rookie of the Year. Again, the big news this morning, the Patriots released Cam Newton. And Cam, again, Mac Jones was 10 to 1 this morning. If you didn't fly to bet it, you didn't get there. It was pulled. It is back now at BetMGM, and I'm a little surprised by this. 5 to 1. So it was just cut in half, not more. 5 to 1 on Mac Jones. I'd still make that bet. 5 to 1? You're the starting quarterback of the New England Patriots. You're starting from week 1. So, again, Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence were the only two you could say that about, that they're absolutely starting week 1 of the rookies. But they play for the Jaguars and the Jets. This just in, he plays for the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick. I would make it a 5 to 1. I'd make it a 5 to 1. I'd just forget about it and come back to me in December. So there you go.